tough act to follow. I just want to repeat, if you have any technology created before 1750, can you get rid of it, communication technology. So if you have a Gutenberg press, you can still use that. I had to open with a joke, Mom, so didn't get a laugh. Mom was a broad. She told great, sometimes ribald stories and jokes, acting out all the parts. She gambled in Las Vegas and elsewhere, the details of which I would leave to my sisters and I didn't realize to my sons. She and Dad also played cards with two neighborhood couples from dusk till dawn every Friday night into Saturday morning, with cigarettes hanging from all their lips, that was the fashion, with accompanying boisterous arguments. We kids upstairs in bed were sure each week that a brawl would erupt at any moment, and remarkably it never did. That's probably because they never had anything stronger than milk to go along with their night-long revelry. They saved the cocktails for visitors when Dad would make whiskey sours in the blender. Mom was incredibly fun to be with. She was gregarious to the point of making lifetime friends. Her two junior high school, college friends who can't be with us today, Lee and Mickey, stayed with her all through that time. And often they made lifelong friends from vacations that she and Dad took over the years. Before moving to the suburbs, she loved to attend opera and theater. And then as her hearing went, it wasn't as important to her. But I know that her support of my dream to be an actor enabled me to study acting in college and continue on from there. The morning after my high school graduation, Mom and Dad drove me to a theater in upstate New York to become an apprentice. And they were so trusting. Little did they know what went on in places like that. The next summer, Mom, Dad, Stacey, and my grandparents drove down to Washington to catch my performances in a supper club. I know so many people whose parents discouraged a career in the arts. Mom was completely supportive. A little of it was vicarious, and she told me that, but she was never a stage mother. She never hovered. There weren't cell phones in it. She was also the model of a ballerbuster. She kept a house whose floors, if you were so inclined, you could eat off. When we were late getting out of the house to go somewhere, she still wouldn't leave without every bed made, every floor vacuumed and mopped, and everything in its place. Our joke was that Mom was making the house perfect for the robbers. We had good hot meals every night, which I found a tough act to follow. Now a little about her grandchildren. I'll stick to my 3 of the 5, though I love my other 2, but more that I know about my kids. To preface, Mom was only 54 when my dad died. And she was a little adrift for a while. Jonah was only 2 and a half, and Sam was 7 months old when he died. But once she got her bearings, she got back on track, and much was due to having a new companion whom she cared for and who cared for her, Joe Kaplan. And as the boys got older, she would be sure that when she and Joe were up from Florida, that they went to the most important sporting events that they could attend. Jonah's soccer games, Sam's basketball games, Rafi's lacrosse games. She was the woman you didn't want to stand next to on the sidelines. Because, of course, she was cheering the loudest. When Mom moved to Atlanta and needed help with just about everything, Sam was there, as he told you. Doing incredible things. And then sometimes taking her to the doctor or just taking her out for bagels, which she loved. After a few years, it was apparent that for her health and safety, the fact that Stacey had moved back to New York, Mom needed to come up north. Jonah flew down to Atlanta, And he and Sam rented a U-Haul and schlepped their grandmother's belongings into that U-Haul and then managed to somehow drive the whole way up to New Jersey and to our home in Westfield, where she would now be ensconced. We and Mom were truly blessed that her caregiver of many years, Magdalene Otumba, came up to New Jersey to continue living with her and caring for her. And when Magdalene needed to go home to Kenya, she found us Karen Otera, who also lovingly cared for Mom in the last year or so before she went to the home. While Mom lived with us, she was always delighted to see Raphael when he came home from college. He took the time to patiently sit with her and tell and retell stories from life at school. And I was able to make Mom so happy by telling her of Jonah's engagement last year to Julia Roth, and to tell her again and again, and each time eliciting such a joyous response. Little Jonah is getting married. You gotta find something to smile about with memory loss. Even with her memory loss, until just a few months ago, Mom could be heard all over her nursing facility as she was hooting over the pages of jokes that her college friend Lee Vander would mail to her. The kinds of stuff you get off the internet. And she could still read them herself. I think we were all grateful for those small pleasures like that for Mom, and I pray, Mom, that somehow you and Dad are reunited now. And I want to pass on that Bob's Aunt Trudy, who lost Uncle Sid just about a month ago, left me a message because how they played cards, that maybe she and Uncle Sid are playing cards together now. I got a message this morning from across the ocean. It's a very short message that I want to read. Dearest Lauren, I am deeply saddened by the news, but Mom has gone to a better place to be with God, and may her soul rest in eternal peace. I loved Mom very much and took care of her with all my heart, and all of you are like family to me. I wish I could be with you at this time, but circumstances cannot allow, though I will keep you and the entire family in my prayers. Pass my condolences to the family. Oh, it's that Gutenberg press again. Pass my condolences to the rest of the family and tell them that I still love and miss them so much. And that's from our dear Magdalene Otumba from Kenya.
Please turn off your cell phones. Thank you.
I'm assuming descending order meant age, not height. So it's my turn. Glasses. Yesterday I lost my best friend. 58 years ago, my mother was pregnant and diagnosed with MS. The doctors advised her that she wouldn't be able to continue her pregnancy and that she should abort. I'm happy to say she didn't listen to them and went ahead with it. Thanks, Mom. And as children, we always heard how much our parents wanted a son. They even had a name picked out for me, Charlie. After 3 daughters, they got their Charlie, a miniature schnauzer. Mom loved her dogs. When we first got Charlie, he was an expensive show dog. We groomed him to be shown, but one day we noticed he had these really crooked teeth. The breeder offered my mother a choice. She could have another dog or her money back. My mother looked at him like he was crazy. I can't replace my Charlie with another dog. So she got her money back. And my dog, Woody, loved my mother. Whenever she would come over, he would just snuggle up with her. And she always said to him, "Sit like a dog." I still don't know what that meant. My mom always called me her son. If anything needed fixing, she would say, "Wait for our son to get home." So I learned how to do a lot of things, and it's come in handy. Mom wasn't just a great mother and grandmother. She was also a great mother-in-law and treated my husband as if he were her son. She was also a great daughter to her parents, Regina and Julius. No matter what house we lived in, my grandparents always had a room, and we would see them often. And she was a loving sister to her brothers, Ron and Stewart. Anyone who had the privilege of knowing our mom really well has heard her tell jokes. She loved to tell jokes. Many had her doing accents. Most didn't need the accents, but she loved doing them. I would tell one now, but they were usually politically incorrect and off-color. Hardest thing I ever had to do was when I named my son Elias, after my dad. How I wish he had lived to see him. But I am so thankful Mom got to know all 4 of her grandsons, as well as her beautiful granddaughter Sky. And how funny that it's Sky that Mom always said was the one who looked like her. I've learned a lot from my mom. She taught me to cook, even though everyone thinks I can't. I just use that as an excuse not to. I got my sense of humor from her. I just don't do accents. And I learned how to decorate from her, except my furniture's comfortable and actually meant to be sat on, not just looked at. She was a wonderful host, and everyone still talks about our cousins' club parties that she hosted. She always had room for us at her home in Florida, and we visited often. And my back still hurts from that awful bar across that fold-out bed. And she kept her apartment at a balmy 88 degrees. We needed to go outside in the sun just to cool off. Mom loved to feed people. 2 years ago, she stayed with me for a few weeks in the summer, and I couldn't stop her from making her famous turkey meatballs. She did it, and they were great. Of course, once you finished eating them, she would tell you that you needed to lose weight. Or maybe it was just me that she told. Being with her was like being in an I Love Lucy episode. Mom was a food demonstrator at Fortunoff's. People would ask questions, and she never heard them and just kept going. You had to see it to believe it. But she was very theatrical and sold a lot of product. She would have been great selling vitamin B to Vegemin. Heaven will be a funnier place now, with good food. I'll miss you, Mommy.
I guess the problem with being the clay nut is that you all stole my best stuff. It was no secret that Mom and I didn't always have the best relationship. So you can imagine it was pretty strange to have Mom decide to come live in Atlanta the same time that Frank and I were traveling to China to adopt our daughter Sky. But I have to say I wouldn't trade that experience. As hard as it was at times, and as difficult as it was on Frank. Her mensch son-in-law, she called him many times, and when she forgot his name, just that really handsome fella. It was an opportunity to spend time with Mom and care for her. It was a chance for Mom to meet my daughter and for Sky to get to know her Meshuggah Nai. I say Meshuggah because Mom called herself Meshuggah repeatedly, and Sky picked up on it. It caused my mom to laugh so loud and clap her hands to hear her Chinese granddaughter calling her a Meshuggah. I can see her laughing that great, loud laugh that only she has. You know the laugh, it's almost as loud as the trademark Roth sneeze. Mom did tend to do things in a big way, a loud way, and I, for one, will never forget how she could laugh, and then it would hit her, and she'd laugh again, even louder, almost in tears. It was infectious. In Atlanta, the family would sit for hours in front of a huge aquarium that we installed to take the place of the TV in the family room. Mom would look at the 3 giant goldfish and watch them swim around. She was always worried if they were eating enough. And if they were happy. Most days she'd look at them and without averting her gaze, she'd say, "Stacey, get them a toy. It needs something to play with." "Yes, Mom, but it's a fish." "Yes, it's a fish, but it still needs a toy." So Sky and I would actually go to the store, and we'd do our best to find something for a goldfish to play with, and we'd settle on bringing home maybe a plant or a bridge. There was also the ritual of serving Mom her meals, lovingly preparing her food, and we'd serve it at the table by the windows right in front of the fireplace. And then when the plate was set down, Mom would throw her hands up in the air and say, "My God, who could eat so much?" No matter what it was, no matter how small the serving, we'd all start to wait for the "who can eat so much?" Of course, she'd always finish it all, and then she'd ask, "Anyone got a cookie?" To which Sky would run and prepare an ice cream cone or bring her a piece of cake. Sky took great pleasure in feeding Mom candy. Even when we went trick-or-treating, it was because Sky couldn't eat any of this stuff. She would go trick-or-treating and say, "Trick-or-treat for Nai-Nai, trick-or-treat for..." No one knew what she was saying. "Trick-or-treat for Nai-Nai." And as a baby, she'd cuddle up next to Nai-Nai in her special chair. Mom retained her ability to read a story with such dramatic flair and with such wonderful voices. Even as her memory was fading, her ability to tell a story remained thankfully intact. When Mom moved to Atlanta, she was still able to share her love of animals, her interest in gardening, and her passion for games. As a child, the family would hit the local nursery so we could buy yews or pachysandra or other ground cover. We'd go home and plant, and I'd play in the Japanese garden, complete with its fully functioning artificial waterfall. Tag love the switch. And so it was obvious that when Mom moved in, Lindsay's here, I knew it. When Mom moved in, we knew we needed to make a special garden in the front yard so that Sky and I could garden together, and they did. Mom loved dogs, and she was the one, Cynthia mentioned, who brought home Charlie the Schnauzer, as I called him, my brother. And the first meeting in Atlanta between Mom and Dane, our 150-pound Great Dane, produced what is still one of my all-time favorite photos. The look on her face as he came right up to her was classic Elaine. What did Mom enjoy? A crossword puzzle, a jigsaw puzzle, a good joke, a good game of poker, or mahjong. And the ultimate, shooting craps. Yes, Mom's love of craps was legendary. She talked about it far more than the few times she was able to play. And yes, it became her grandson's wish to be at the craps table with Mom, and I'm glad that they had the opportunity to fulfill that in Atlantic City. She was a hoot, as you can imagine, yelling and cheering with each roll. At home, Mom would play card games, and she was always up for a game of gin, or when she couldn't find someone to play with, she'd settle on a game of war with Sky. I was thankful for finding the Game Show Network. The one time it went out, imagine me on the phone trying to explain to them, "You must turn it back on now." They said, "Explain to..." "No, you must turn it on." Mom may not have always known what day it was or the current president's name, but I swear more often than not she was dead on with her answers and faster than I at jeopardy of the $100,000 pyramid. Mom was more athletic than most people would guess. I remember finding photos of her as a camp counselor on horseback, pictures of her on the basketball team. I have to admit to being quite surprised myself. I think that by the time I came along, Mom treated cleaning our home as a competitive sport. She was smart enough, however, to enlist Aunt Rhoda and Uncle Bobby and Fran and Jean to take Val, Cliffy, and me skiing and skating in the Catskills. I thank my mom for exposing me to those activities because now it's my turn to enjoy watching my daughter take to the ice. Sky and I even have a skating excursion planned soon as a way to celebrate Mom's life. Mom was always so frenetic and ready to go somewhere or cook something that it was unusual for her to just sit and be. Once while visiting her in Florida, under the threat of my leaving, she agreed to sit on a park bench and look at the clouds with me. At first she just mumbled how ridiculous it was to look at the clouds and begged Stacey, "Come on, let's get going." And then since I wasn't moving, she sat. She started to look at the clouds and cocked her head to one side and said, "Ooh, look at that one. It kind of looks like an elephant. Do you see it?" We then sat for about a half an hour just looking at the clouds. I was reminded of that day recently. In the past few months, I went to see Mom with a bit more frequency, and one particular visit warned me. Not for what we did, but just for the fact that we calmly were. It felt like sitting with an old friend on a front porch, rocking back and forth in our rockers. Nothing was said. We just held hands, and she squeezed my hand on occasion. Most recently, I have a wonderful memory of Mom's friends Lee and Nikki taking the day off to go visit Mom with me. Fighting in the car about how to get there, too. At first, he was so incredibly disappointed. Mom smiled warmly at the nice people who came to visit and thanked them for the beautiful plant. It was obvious she did not recognize her lifelong friends. While they and Lauren went to go sit at another table, I prodded Mom for a bit and tried to jog her memory. Mom, lifelong friends, Washington Heights, Brooklyn College. And at one point she looked up and she said, "You mean Mickey and Lee?" I said, "Yes, Mom, Mickey and Lee." And she got a bit quieter and she said, "Are they still alive?" I said, "Yes, Mom, they're alive and they're here." And she stood up and she screamed, "Mickey, Lee, my best friends, you're here." That was, I believe, an incredible gift from God for that moment of recollection. I'm so thankful for everyone who wrote to Mom, who tried to call her on her special caption phone, who instant messaged her when she was in Florida, and printed out the jokes and snail mailed them to her in Atlanta. Of course, to my sister Lauren and my brother-in-law Bob, who most recently took on the major task of seeing that Mom was well cared for and comfortable. Not an easy task by any means. Mom was lucky to have both of you. And we were lucky to have her in our lives. I love you, Mom. Zichron Livracha. Her memory will always be a blessing.